Don't touch that. The shout cut the air like glass breaking. A toy crashed to the floor. A child screamed. Juice spilled across the carpet. Bright red against white. The house boiled with noise. Laughter from the kitchen. The smell of turkey heavy with rosemary. Wrapping paper torn in the living room. Children arguing over toys. Firewood crackling in the hearth. The tree lights blinking fast and nervous. Christmas alive. Too alive. Almost dizzy. But in the middle of it all. The table. Long. Wood polished to a shine. Plates waiting. Glasses filled. Every chair taken. Except one. At the far end. Covered with the same white cloth as last year. And the year before. And every year Grace could remember. 16. Old enough to notice. Old enough to refuse silence. Mom. Her voice was steady. Loud enough to cut through the noise. Why is that chair always empty? The sound of forks stopped. Aunt Martha froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Uncle Sam cleared his throat, eyes down at the potatoes. Even the kids fell quieter. As if the question itself turned off the music in the room. Sarah stiffened. Her hand shook as she set down her fork. Go help Grandma with the dishes, she whispered. But Grace didn't move. Her gaze stayed on the chair. It's his, isn't it? Whoever he was. Sarah's jaw tightened. The white cloth looked brighter now, almost glowing in the candlelight. That chair wasn't empty. It was crowded, with memory, with silence, with ghosts no one dared name. Before Sarah could answer, another cry cut in. A nephew tipped his glass. Red juice poured across the tablecloth. Adults jumped up. Cloths. Napkins. Voices overlapping. Quick, blot it. Not with that towel. The noise rushed back like a storm. But Grace's question didn't vanish. It hung, sharp as glass, in the quiet corner of Sarah's chest. Her eyes returned to the chair. The candle flickered. Her vision blurred. Fragments flashed. A boy in a red coat. Snow caught in his hair. His laugh too loud for the night. A whisper in the dark. You don't understand. This isn't a game. Then nothing. Only silence. Her lips moved. The words were not meant for anyone else. This year, she whispered. Everything will change. 1994. Cold air burned lungs. The fair glittered with strings of colored lights. Vendors called out. Steam rose from cups of cocoa. Music drifted in, carolers with tired voices, faces pink from frost. Sarah was 12. Her brother Nick was 15. He walked ahead, taller, careless, alive. She tugged his sleeve. Wait for me. Nick grinned. Bought her a candy cane. Unwrapped his too fast. Bit it. Coughed. Choked. Sarah gasped, then laughed until her sides hurt. Nick laughed with her, tears freezing on his cheeks. That night felt endless. 2 children wrapped in the promise of winter. Of family. Of safety. But safety never lasts. Sarah remembered the slam of the door. The scream behind it. The echo that froze in her mind. The memory still blurred, as if hidden by frost. Now. Sarah closed a drawer in her room. Inside, what she had never thrown away. A stub of that same candy cane. Edges sticky with time. Still wrapped, still waiting, like it knew. Mom. Grace's voice cut in. Sharper. Older than her years. I have the right to know. Sarah folded towels. Too fast. Too tight. Hands busy. Eyes down. That chair, Grace pressed, isn't tradition. It's someone's seat. Someone you erased. Grace. Tell me who Nick is. The name dropped heavy. Sarah froze. Her chest rose, fell. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Where did you hear that? She whispered. Grandma, Grace answered. She called for him. In her sleep. The air thickened. The house groaned with silence. That night Sarah turned in bed. Michael lay beside her. She whispered. She knows. Michael sighed. We agreed. Leave the past buried. He was her uncle, Sarah said. She deserves. She never met him. Michael cut her off. She doesn't need to. We don't owe her his mistakes. Sarah turned her face to the dark. Her jaw ached. Her fists clenched. He wasn't a mistake. Michael exhaled. Rolled away. The silence between them felt like a wall of ice. Outside, snow fell harder. Thick. Unforgiving. As if the world wanted to bury something too. Grandma sat wrapped in a shawl. Needles clicked. Click. Pause. Click again. Grace sat close. Her voice low, steady. Grandma. Who is Nick? The needles stopped. The porch seemed to hold its breath. A car passed on the street. A dog barked far away. Grandma's lips trembled. That's not a Christmas question, she said. Then when? Grace leaned forward. You said his name. You called him. Grandma looked at the frozen yard. At the cracked bird bath. At the pale sun sliding behind bare trees. He was kind, she whispered. Brave. He thought he could change things. Grace's heart pounded. Change what? Grandma's voice dropped even lower. We told him to forget. We all did. Because silence is easier. The needles moved again. Too fast now. Click. Click. As if knitting shut the memory. I should check the oven, Grandma muttered. She stood. The shawl slipped from her shoulders. She left Grace alone with questions. Later. Grace climbed the attic stairs. Each step creaked. Dust rose in clouds. The bulb flickered weakly. Trunks. Boxes. A broken chair in the corner. A suitcase that smelled of mothballs. In the far corner. A cardboard box. Tape cracked with age. Grace knelt. Her fingers tore it open. Photographs spilled out. Children at birthday parties. A family picnic. Faces she knew. Faces younger than she remembered. Then. A photo that made her breath stop. A young man in uniform. Back straight. Eyes fierce. A smile that looked like hers in the mirror. On the back. Nick. 1995. First day. Her chest ached. So he was real. Not a story. Not a dream. Her uncle. Beneath the photos. An envelope. Yellowed. Edges curled. A seal pressed into brittle wax. She reached for it. When the attic door slammed open. Sarah stood there. Breathless. Eyes wide. Where did you get that? Grace held up the photo. Why didn't you show me? He was in the army. He mattered. Give it to me. No. You always tell me to ask questions. This is me asking. Sarah's hand shook as she grabbed the photo. The paper tore. The sound sharp as thunder. Grace gasped. You think tearing it changes anything? Some things, Sarah said, don't help anyone to know. They help me. Sarah stared at the broken picture. Uniform ripped in half. Smile split apart. Her throat worked. Her eyes burned. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From what happens when you dig. Grace clutched the envelope. Pressed it to her chest. I don't want protection. I want truth. She slipped past Sarah. Down the stairs. Through the hall thick with cinnamon and noise. Toward the door. Cold air hit her face. Snow stung her cheeks. She kept walking. No coat. No gloves. Only the envelope. Only the promise she had just made. If they hide him, she whispered. I'll find him. The snow crunched under her boots. The street light buzzed. And Grace did not look back. Sarah lay awake that night. Snow tapped against the window. Her breath clouded in the cold room. Memories returned like broken glass. The last day with Nick. Sharp. Unfinished. She was 16. He was 19. The argument started small. Then grew like fire. You never listen, Nick had shouted. You don't know what he's done. Sarah screamed back. You're always stirring trouble. You'll ruin everything. He slammed his fist against the wall. Eyes burning. Jaw tight. Then he whispered. Low. Fierce. I have to do this. Those words still rang in her ears. I have to do this. Not a choice. A vow. That night he left the house. She never saw him again. Now. Sarah searched the closet. Behind coats. Behind old boxes. Her hands touched something cold. A small recorder. Dust clung to it. The button stiff. The tape inside labeled only with his initials. Her heart pounded. She pressed play. A crackle of static. Then his voice. Nick's voice. Older, steadier, tired. I can't keep silent anymore. If something happens to me. The sound broke. Static. The tape hissed. Then silence. Sarah clutched it to her chest. The same words repeating in her head. If something happens to me. Her breath quickened. Her father's shadow filled her mind. The way he had slammed doors. The way he had shouted until walls shook. The way bruises appeared where questions began. Sarah pressed stop. Her fingers trembled. The recorder slid to the floor. The next morning. The house filled with tension again. Grandma muttered as she folded napkins. Better not to know, she said. Some truths only destroy. Grace shook her head. Her voice sharp. I don't care if it destroys. He deserves more than silence. Sarah's chest ached. Her daughter's face looked so much like Nick's. The same fire. The same refusal to step back. Grace slammed her notebook shut. I'll find out myself. She walked to the door. Her coat zipped. Boots tight. Bag on her shoulder. Where are you going? Sarah asked. The city archive. Grace's voice was firm. They keep records. I'll find his name. The door shut behind her. Cold rushed in, then vanished. The silence left behind was louder than the slam. Sarah stood in the hallway. Her hand still holding the recorder. Her mind still hearing Nick's voice. I can't keep silent anymore. If something happens to me. The words circled. Over and over. Like snow swirling outside. And Sarah knew. This wasn't just disappearance. It was something darker. Something hidden. Something waiting to be unearthed. She pressed her hand to her lips. Whispered into the empty hall. Nick, what did you do? Sarah sat on the floor. The recorder heavy in her hands. She pressed play again. Static. Then Nick's voice. Shaky. Determined. I can't stay quiet. If something happens to me. The tape cut off. Abrupt. As if someone had torn the words away. Her stomach turned. She pressed rewind. Tried again. Same break. Same silence. Her mind filled the missing words. If something happens to me, what? Where was he going? Who was he afraid of? Her thoughts slid back to her father. The night he stormed into the kitchen. The way Nick flinched. The way Sarah herself had hidden behind the table. Her father's voice thundered. You think you know better than me? You think the world cares what you say? Nick's jaw had set. He didn't back down. That night, bruises darkened his arms. And still, he wouldn't stop. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. The tape recorder slipped from her hands. She wanted to smash it. She wanted to keep it forever. In the kitchen, voices rose. Grandma's sharp whisper cut through. It's better not to know. The truth ruins families. Sarah walked in. Her voice cracked. Keeping quiet ruined us already. Grace sat at the table, scribbling. Old newspapers spread before her. She looked up, eyes blazing. I don't need permission. I'll find the truth myself. Grace, please, Sarah reached out. But her daughter pulled away. I'm not like you. I won't stay silent. That afternoon Grace entered the city archive. The room smelled of dust and paper. Shelves towered high. Files lined in rows like soldiers. She searched. Her fingers skimmed spines. Names. Dates. Reports. Then, there it was. Nick's name. Typed in faded ink. Grace pulled the file. Her hands shook. Pages yellowed. Clippings glued in. One headline read. Local youth joins protest against corruption. Another. Violence at rally leaves several missing. Nick's name was circled. Missing. Without a trace. Grace's chest tightened. Her uncle had stood in a crowd. He had raised his voice. And the world had swallowed him. She traced his name with her fingertip. Her throat burned. Her jaw clenched. He hadn't just disappeared. He had been silenced. She copied the pages. Folded them into her notebook. And whispered to herself. They can't hide him from me. Back at home, Sarah stared out the window. The snow fell heavy. The world outside buried in white. Her reflection looked back at her. Eyes tired. Haunted. She whispered into the glass. Nick, what did they do to you? Sarah sat alone at the kitchen table. The snow outside pressed against the glass. Her hand shook as she pulled a drawer open. Inside. An envelope. Yellowed. Edges soft. Never opened. Her name written in Nick's handwriting. She stared at it. Her chest tightened. She broke the seal. The paper trembled in her hands. The words blurred, then sharpened. Sarah. I know what Dad did. I can't stay quiet anymore. If I don't come back, remember this. It wasn't an accident. And it wasn't my choice. Her breath caught. Her father's shadow loomed in memory. His fists. His voice breaking walls. The night Nick left with bruises on his arms. Sarah pressed the letter to her chest. Her whisper cracked. Why didn't I open this before? That evening, the family gathered again. The empty chair at the table. Covered. Waiting. Grace's eyes locked on it. She turned to her mother. Why don't you put it away? Why leave it there if no one will talk? Sarah couldn't answer. Her throat closed. Her fingers clenched around the letter in her pocket. Later, Grace searched the study. Her father's old desk. Drawers stiff with dust. She pulled out folders. Papers bound in string. She found messages. Letters exchanged. Her father's name in the corner. Other names. Numbers. Dates. Her eyes widened. Words leapt from the page. Funds moved. Cover story ready. Keep quiet. No leaks. Her hand trembled. These weren't just letters. They were proof. Proof of corruption. Proof of silence built into their home. Grace shoved the papers into her bag. Her heart pounded. Her world tilted. She whispered into the empty room. They all knew. They all covered it. At that same moment, Sarah stood in her bedroom. She read Nick's letter again. Each line cut deeper. I know what Dad did. The words burned. They would never leave her. Her knees weakened. She sat on the edge of the bed. Tears slipped down her face. She whispered to the dark. Nick, what were you trying to tell me? Grace stood at the front of her classroom. Her notes trembled in her hand. She cleared her throat. My project, she began, is called Family Silence. The room grew quiet. Eyes on her. Her chest pounded. She spoke of secrets. Of empty chairs. Of names erased. Her voice cracked. But she kept going. My family taught me silence. But silence is a cage. And cages break people. When she finished, the room stayed still. Then her teacher leaned forward. Her voice soft. This is about you, isn't it? Grace swallowed hard. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That night Sarah found the courage to face her mother. The kitchen was dim. The clock ticked loud. Mom, Sarah said. We can't keep doing this. She deserves to know. Grandma shook her head. Her hands trembled. Tears slid down her cheeks. I knew, she whispered. I knew and I said nothing. I was afraid. Sarah's chest tightened. Her mother's guilt pressed heavy. Generations of silence stacked on top of her. Grace refused to stop. She searched for anyone who had known Nick. Old names. Old numbers. Finally, a man answered. They met in a cafe. The smell of burnt coffee. The hiss of steam. The clatter of plates. The man's hair was gray. His hands rough. He looked at Grace as if he were seeing a ghost. You look like him, he said. Tell me, Grace begged. Tell me who he was. The man nodded slowly. He stirred his coffee. The spoon clinked against the cup. Nick was brave, he said. Too brave. He wanted to speak out. About your grandfather. About the things he did. Grace leaned in. Her pulse raced. What things? The man looked around the cafe. Lowered his voice. Beatings. Threats. Money moving where it shouldn't. Your grandfather had power. Nick wanted to expose him. The words sank deep. Grace felt her body go cold. Her grandfather. Her mother's father. The man who sat at Christmas with a smile too sharp. The man's voice dropped lower. Nick said he would go public. He had evidence. He said, if I don't speak, no one will. And then, he was gone. Grace's throat ached. Tears burned. But inside her chest, a spark. Small. Fierce. Unstoppable. She wiped her eyes. Her voice steady. Then I'll finish what he started. The man looked at her. Long sad. Then he nodded. As if he's still here, he said. Grace left the cafe. Snow swirled around her. The city lights blurred. Her jaw set the way Nick's had set. She whispered into the night. They can't bury him. Not anymore. The storm thickened outside. Snow pressed heavy against the windows. Inside, the family gathered around the table. The empty chair glowed in candlelight. Grace placed papers on the table. Old documents. Clippings. Evidence. Sarah's breath caught. Where did you get those? The archive, Grace said. Her voice was steady. They tried to erase him. But they failed. Sarah reached trembling hands. Headlines blurred before her eyes. Local youth joins protest. Police clash with demonstrators. Several reported missing. Nick's name circled in ink. His photo grainy. His eyes alive even in black and white. Sarah's lips parted. Memories rushed back. The night her father shouted. The sound of glass breaking. The way Nick stood tall, refusing to move. Her father's voice roared in her head. You'll destroy everything I built. Grace's eyes narrowed. Her voice cut through the silence. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't reckless. He saw the truth. And they silenced him. Sarah shook her head. Her hands covered her face. No, you don't understand what he knew. Then explain, Grace begged. Tell me what happened. But Sarah couldn't. The words stuck. Her chest heaved. Her hands trembled. Grandma's fork clattered against her plate. She muttered, almost to herself. He was too close. Too close to your father's secrets. Grace turned sharply. What secrets? No one answered. The fire hissed in the hearth. The storm rattled the windows. Later, in her room, Sarah unfolded Nick's letter again. The ink faint. But the words sharp as knives. I know what Dad did. She pressed her hand to her mouth. Tears spilled hot. Her mind replayed that night. Nick slipping out with bruises on his arms. His voice echoing. I have to do this. The image burned. The memory refused to fade. Down the hall, Grace rifled through her father's desk again. Old files. Hidden letters. Notes scribbled in margins. Her eyes widened. Words leapt off the page. Payments processed. Story controlled. Keep him quiet. Her throat tightened. The notes weren't about strangers. They were about Nick. Grace whispered to herself. Grandpa knew. Dad helped hide it. She pressed her hands to the papers. Her pulse thundered. The truth was closer than ever. But still. No answer to the only question that mattered. Where was Nick? Sarah watched her daughter. The fire in her eyes. The determination in her voice. It was Nick all over again. Grace spread the papers on the table. Look. These prove it. They knew. They hid him. Sarah whispered. You're too young to carry this. Grace's jaw set. You were too young too. And they made you carry it anyway. Sarah's chest burned. The silence cracked inside her. The walls she built all these years began to fall. This Christmas, she said. It will be different. She grabbed her phone. Hands shaking. She took photos of the papers. The letter. The torn photograph. Together. Mother and daughter. They uploaded everything. Files. Images. Words. They hit publish. Within minutes, the post spread. Old names resurfaced. Whispers turned into echoes. The silence began to break. The phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Sarah answered. Mrs. Carter? A man's voice. Calm. Direct. This is Daniel West. Investigative reporter. We've been digging into the old cases. We think we found something about your brother. Sarah's knees weakened. Her hand gripped the counter. What is it? Not on the phone, he said. Meet me tomorrow. Bring your daughter. You deserve to see this. The line went dead. Sarah lowered the phone. Her heart pounded like thunder. Grace stepped forward. What did he say? They found something. Her voice trembled. About Nick. That night Sarah opened a box of ornaments. Hands trembling. One ornament heavier than the rest. A red glass sphere. Inside. A folded note. Her breath caught. She broke the ornament carefully. Glass scattered across the table. The note unfolded. Nick's handwriting. Sharp. Familiar. Don't look for me if you're not ready. The truth will burn everything. But if you are, follow the trail. Tears blurred her eyes. Her hands shook. She whispered. Oh God, Nick. The house was silent. Everyone asleep. Only Sarah awake. Only Sarah reading her brother's last words. Her heart ached. But her chest filled with fire. Tomorrow. The truth would no longer be buried. Christmas morning. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine. The table was set. Plates. Glasses. Candles flickering. And at the end, the empty chair. Waiting. Sarah stood. Her hands rested on the back of the chair. Her chest heavy. Her voice trembling. No more silence, she said. The family looked up. Forks paused midair. Eyes turned toward her. Sarah drew a breath. This chair. It was Nick's. My brother. Your uncle. Your son. The words spilled out. The truth she had carried for decades. He was brave. He tried to speak out. Against corruption. Against our own father. And he paid the price. Gasps broke the room. Grandma covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I should have protected him, she whispered. Michael lowered his head. Shame flickered in his eyes. The children stared, wide-eyed. As if meeting Nick for the first time. Sarah placed the torn photograph on the chair. Beside it, Nick's letter. The one he wrote before he disappeared. No more secrets, she said. No more empty chairs we pretend not to see. He was one of us. And he will always be one of us. Tears blurred her eyes. But her voice grew stronger. We cannot erase him. We cannot silence him. Not anymore. Grace stepped forward. Her hand on the chair. Her voice clear. He's not gone. He's here. With us. She looked at her mother. At her family. At the chair. And he always will be. For the first time in years. They wept together. Not apart. Not in silence. Together. Arms reached. Hands clasped. The family pulled close. Tears turned into strength. The empty chair was no longer empty. It held memory. It held truth. It held Nick. Sarah wiped her eyes. Her chest felt lighter. Her voice steady. This is our beginning, she said. No more lies. No more hiding. Only truth. Only family. The candles burned brighter. The storm outside eased. The house felt new. Alive. And though the chair stood still, Nick's presence filled the room. To you, listening now. What about your family? What chair sits empty at your table? What story waits in silence? Buried, but not gone? Would you ask the question? Would you risk breaking the silence? Maybe. This year. It's time.